Welcome to AmdiVibes, where today we're traveling back to the last year of the 19th century, a world on the edge of something enormous. The Industrial Revolution has remade everything. Trains cross continents, telegraphs connect cities, electric light is beginning to push back the darkness. Humanity has never felt more powerful, more confident, more certain that science and progress have finally conquered the ancient fears that haunted every generation before. And then, in 1899, voices begin to speak. Voices that say something is coming, something that will darken the sky, shake the foundations of the modern world, and end the century not in triumph, but in terror. Some of these voices come from scientists, some from mystics, some from ordinary people who wake in the night with visions they cannot explain, and what they describe, with an accuracy that is either extraordinary coincidence or something far more unsettling, maps onto the disasters of the early 20th century with a precision that historians and researchers are still struggling to explain. This is the story of the forgotten prophecies of 1899. And by the time we are done, you are going to question what you think you know about the nature of time itself. First, let's understand the world these prophecies were born into. 1899 is a hinge year, the eve of a new age. The optimism is enormous. The British Empire covers a quarter of the globe. American industry is the most productive in history. European science has explained the movement of the planets and the mechanics of the human body. Darwin has explained life itself. The educated classes genuinely believe that superstition is finished, that prophecy and mysticism are just remnants of a primitive age. And yet, beneath the optimism, there's a current of unease. Artists across Europe are producing work of startling darkness. Edvard Munch paints The Scream. Bram Stoker publishes Dracula. H.G. Wells publishes The War of the Worlds, a novel about a civilization so confident it can't see its own destruction coming. Something in the cultural air knows the confidence is premature. Something can feel what is coming. This brings us to the prophecy of Mother Shipton. She was a 16th century English prophetess whose writings have been debated for centuries. Now, historians believe many prophecies attributed to her were written long after her death. But here's what makes the 1899 moment so significant. In 1862, a publisher named Charles Hindley printed a collection of her prophecies that described carriages without horses and iron ships crossing the ocean. Images that mapped remarkably well onto 19th century technology. Hindley later admitted he wrote some of these verses himself, but one specific verse, he claimed, was original. It described the world ending when a specific celestial event occurred, a darkening in the sky. Read on the eve of a new century. It felt to many like a countdown. Something was coming when the calendar turned. And here at AmdiVibes, this is where the story connects to documented science. Because 1899 wasn't just a year of cultural anxiety, it was a year of genuine solar significance. Astronomers tracking the sun's activity in the 1890s were documenting something troubling. The sun's 11-year cycle was building toward what they called a solar maximum, a peak of activity when massive bursts of solar energy were most likely to hit Earth. And in 1901, arrived. The solar maximum of cycle 14 produced intense geomagnetic storms. Telegraph systems were disrupted. The aurora borealis was seen as far south as the Caribbean. Compass needles swung wildly. The sky didn't turn black, but it did something almost as strange. It turned green and red and violet, colors of an aurora seen where it had no business appearing. The sky behaved in a way that the people of 1899, reading their prophecies about celestial disturbances, would have recognized immediately. Something happened in the sky. Not all the prophecies came from books. Some came from ordinary people. John Elias was a Welsh coal miner, born in 1854. He wasn't a mystic or a preacher. He worked underground, came home, and slept. And in the winter of 1899, he began to dream. He kept a journal which survives today. Researchers who have examined it describe its contents as extraordinary. Over several months, Elias recorded dreams of a darkness that covered Europe, of young men in uniforms marching into mud, of machines that flew and dropped fire, of a city consumed by flames so vast they could be seen from miles away. He described the sound of guns so numerous they sounded like permanent thunder, and the smell of something chemical that burned the throat. He didn't use the word war. He had no framework for what he was seeing. He just described it as a punishment. His minister told him to pray and stop worrying. John Elias died in a mining accident in 1903. He did not live to see the war his dreams described, but his journal describes the Western Front, the gas attacks, the aerial bombardment, the industrial-scale slaughter of the First World War, written down in 1899, 15 years before it happened. But here is the part of the story that is not mysterious at all, and somehow the most disturbing. The most accurate prophecies of 1899 came not from mystics or dreamers. They came from scientists. Ivan Bloch was a Polish banker and economist. In 1898, he published a 6-volume work called The Future of War. His argument was precise and devastating. Modern industrial technology, he wrote, had made war between major powers suicidal. The firepower of modern armies was so overwhelming that any attack across open ground would be massacred. The result wouldn't be swift, decisive campaigns. It would be stalemate, trenches, and attrition. A war that could not be won, only endured, at a cost that would destroy the economies and societies of the nations that fought it. He predicted the Western Front with the accuracy of a military historian looking backward, not an economist looking forward. He presented his findings to governments across Europe. He was ignored, dismissed by men in uniforms who believed war was a matter of morale and national character, not mathematics and firepower. The prophecy was precise. The evidence was solid. The analysis was correct. And it made no difference. There is one more prophecy from 1899 that deserves your attention. It comes from the Lakota Sioux tradition. The ghost dance prophet Wovoka had spoken of a great transformation coming. After the movement was crushed at Wounded Knee, the prophecy didn't die. Elder voices in 1899 spoke of a great sickness coming, a darkness that would fall on everyone, a consequence of destroying the natural order, a rebalancing that no army could prevent. In 1918, the Spanish flu pandemic swept the world. It killed between 50 and 100 million people, more than the First World War. It fell hardest on those whose communities had already been weakened by displacement and poverty. The Great Sickness came, not in 1899, but it came. It's about several things happening simultaneously in 1899, and what they tell us about human perception and cultural anxiety. Some of what looks like prophecy is just accurate pattern recognition. Ivan Bloch was not a mystic. He was an analyst. He looked at the technology and calculated the consequences. His prophecy wasn't supernatural. It was mathematics. John Elias's dreams may tell us more about the collective unconscious of his time than about any access to future events. The solar observations were real. The sky did strange things. That's documented science. And the Native American prophecies of great sickness may have been accurate, because the people making them had a clearer view of the conditions that produce catastrophes than the optimistic mainstream wanted to acknowledge. People on the margins always see the collapse coming before the people at the center, because the people at the center have too much invested in believing it won't happen. So what does the story of 1899 teach us? It teaches us that the future is always being predicted by someone. The question is whether we are listening to the right voices. In 1899, Ivan Bloch told the governments of Europe exactly what was coming. He was ignored. John Elias dreamed it. The Lakota elders warned of it. Artists painted it. And the people in power chose not to listen because the prediction was inconvenient. The second lesson is about the difference between prediction and prevention. A prophecy that is heard, that changes behavior, is not a failed prophecy. It's a successful warning. The most important prophecies are the ones taken seriously enough to make them unnecessary. The ones that were ignored became history. And the final lesson is the most urgent. Today, there are voices predicting catastrophe. Scientists, economists, historians, people on the margins. They are publishing papers, writing books, making videos, presenting evidence. And the people with the power to act are, largely, choosing the story they prefer over the analysis they need. 1899 has something to say to our time. The question is whether we are listening. Here at AmdiVibes, we tell these stories because the past is always trying to warn the present. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe for more stories that connect the past to what's happening right now. We'll see you in the next one.